Welcome. My name is John Handel, and this is the next in a series of videos on the executive project leadership architecture. And previously, we talked about the three levels of management, and we discussed the integrated operational readiness. And then we got into the executive governance gate. And now we're going to review the actual questions that form this gate. And the review, the agenda for this meeting is confirm the scope of the governance review, work each of the 5 question sections. So go through and the appropriate people have to answer these questions with evidence, record the status and the owners and the due dates for resolution, resolve conditions and open exceptions, and reach the executive governance decision. So we'll look at the first technical readiness questions here. So the first question, has the delivered capability passed all required technical acceptance and validation tests? And this is where the project manager has to deliver all of those results and either show in some kind of a document that all of these things were met and has the paperwork to back up the claim. You just can't come in and say, oh, everything was okay. And then you can select go. You can select go with conditions or defer or then no go. And no go would be that there was some fatal flaw in the validation test that says we can't deploy because the environment, the system is not stable. It's going to crash or it's going to cause a bad customer outcome, what have you. So that's the first question. Have production load and performance tests confirmed the system meets operational requirements? And this is the tough one. This is where you get into the load. Have you been able to replicate your load? Okay. And sometimes the load is not in your area. For example, the recent change, the load had nothing to do with how many recent changes you could do. That wasn't the load. The load was call processing, and you had to function with a call processing load. So you had no expertise in the call processing load, but your system had to function in that load. So that's where doing the load testing can be hard. You may be doing a billing system, but you got some other system in your company that's generating a lot of data traffic for whatever reason. It could be some production environment where there's a lot of data flying around. You may have service orders going on for customers that are buying things in a large big box store type of thing where they're ordering thousands of things. And your thing has got nothing to do with that ordering, but you have to somehow mimic that traffic so that it can survive in the real world. Are all critical defects resolved and remaining issues documented with mitigation plans? So this is where you have to show your test results. And you never want to say that 100% of your tests have to pass this test. We had a goal of we absolutely had to run 100% of the tests, but our success rate was if we passed 97%, then we could document the 3% failures, and depending on the severity of those 3% failures would determine whether you could go forward or not. You don't want to hold up a multi-million-dollar project because some minor thing is wrong. Okay, so for example, if this screen was supposed to be light blue rather than dark blue in these text boxes, then functionally it works just fine. The color is wrong, and so you document that on this particular screen. the color should be dark blue and it's light blue. And you go on and you give a date when you can correct that particular attribute. But if you say you have to have 100% of your tests, then you would be stopped until you actually fix the color. So you don't want to trap yourself in a corner by saying you have to have everything complete. So we had 3% leeway, and we'd have to document what that 3% was. Now, if that 3% had a showstopper, then you would have to go with the no-go. Is the technical solution documented, supportable, and ready for operational handover? Okay, so that's the final question. And that's where you get in to the user manuals, the operational manuals. Is it people trained to work on it and to maintain it? And so all of that has to be shown at the meeting. So the next area is the operational readiness. So here the operation manager is going to say, are operational procedures documented, reviewed, and available to responsible teams? So in the past, that may not be true. They just were looking at the project, and this piece of it may not have been done yet. But now to pass this gate, that all has to be in place, and integrated operational readiness helps achieve this before you cut over and eliminates the delay of getting this done. Have support personnel completed required training? Again, integrated operational readiness. Are monitoring, alerting, escalation, and incident responses processes in place? That's strictly an operational thing, but that also can lead to what types of things that you can test during the integrated operational readiness that would help you figure out what needs to be escalated. And once you see a problem, you can quickly resolve it and say, oh, now that I know how that failed and I know how to correct it, I can correct it quicker than I can escalate it. So maybe you don't need to escalate it. But if you've never seen it before, you're going to escalate it because you have no idea of how to fix it. But integrated operational readiness would help alleviate those kind of problems. Has rollback or contingency planning been validated? Again, you can do that pre-cutover, pre-live service. And so all of that is part of PMI's more concept of enhancing enterprise value. These types of things are all part of that integrated operational readiness plan. So those are the questions for operation. And then we get into organizational readiness. Has affected functional organizations confirmed readiness to support deployment? Are ownership, accountability, and decision rights clearly assigned? Have communication plans been prepared for internal stakeholders? So what kind of reports are going to be generated out of this project on an ongoing basis for operations to get some idea of how the new system is working? Have organizational change impacts been identified and addressed? So what type of organizational changes did this lead to? Sometimes new technology leads to increased productivity, and come find out that it leads to staff reductions. So have the impacts been identified and addressed? So now that you have this new system, maybe you don't need as many people as you used to have. And have you addressed those issues and taken care of that, or is it a big surprise when after it goes in service? So those are the organizational readiness questions. Business readiness. Have customer, user, and stakeholder impacts been evaluated? Are business continuity, compliance, and regulatory considerations addressed? So again, has anything changed where you got to be compliant with some new regulation or something? Have material business risks been reviewed and accepted or mitigated? So as management sometimes will be willing to take a bigger risk if there's a bigger reward out there. They may be willing to take a bigger risk to take a shot at that bigger reward, but has that been accepted or mitigated or reviewed? Sometimes not. And this gate process forces that to happen. Are expected enterprise value outcomes defined and traceable? Okay. And then the last one, executive readiness. Has executive leadership reviewed sufficient objective evidence to make a deployment decision? In other words, have you seen enough documentation to make a decision? Or are people still saying, I think it's good, but I don't have any real paperwork? So this is where it forces that to happen, okay? Are conditions, exceptions, and follow-up actions documented with accountable owners? So that's where you go with conditions, and there may be some minor thing like the blue screen. You might have a due date of a week. I'll have the correct color on the screen corrected in a week, or whatever the issue is, but it has to be documented and a plan for resolving that issue. Is the deployment decision aligned with enterprise priorities and risk appetite? And has the decision authority formally approved, deferred, or rejected operational deployment? So again, at the executive level, everybody's on board now as to why we're going ahead. And if there's any hesitancy, you can prevent going ahead and risking bad customer experience or whatever by maybe delaying. Even though the project is finished, you may want to delay a week or two till operations are ready to better take care of the system or whatever the issue is. So those are the questions that you ask, and it's a 20 question gate review. It may be more or less than that. I don't think less, but possibly you could have more. And these questions are based on your project and your business. So these questions are not cast in concrete. They're subjective. So you may have to come up with your own list of questions for each of these areas. But the important thing is that all of these areas are addressed, and it's done at the executive level. This isn't change management meeting with the project manager and saying that the project is good and we're ready to go, because that eliminates talking about operations and whether the executives are ready, because change management's not going to affect have much input on executive management. So it has to be an executive decision as to how the company is going to proceed. So that's the whole key of this executive governance gate, is takes into account not only the project but the other areas of the company. So there's a sign-off paper sheet. So the executive sponsor signs off, operations leader signs off, the project manager will sign off that they delivered all the proof that the project was okay. Operations manager will sign off, and then the governance decision overall what they're going to do. Okay. So project completion proves delivery. Governance proves the enterprise can sustain it. Okay. So laboratory validation proved an upgraded network met design requirements, yet executive leadership required production load testing, service continuity confirmation, operational monitoring, escalation procedures, and support readiness before authorizing live deployment. Technical success must be backed by objective evidence of sustainable operations. And if you're running system that has it's got critical infrastructure that you're supporting. So you got to take into account what the consequences are if the system fails that you're running. Is your business involved in something like that? Or is it, if it goes down, it's not going to impact anybody but your local internal business. And so maybe it's not a big deal. But if you're supporting something that's tied to a bigger network outside of your company, that you support a large host of customers, and if it goes down, you're impacting all of those customers and interfaces. So that's why it's a governance proves enterprise can sustain it. So we're going to return to the project leadership now. So what changes after executive leadership authorizes deployment? So you've got existing operations, you've got experienced personnel, and a new capability leads to stronger and prepared operations. So after value is realized, executive leadership evaluates performance, benefits, and emerging needs and begins the next improvement cycle. So you're all the way out here now. You've come all the way through the gate review. You're operational. You've stabilized operations, and you're achieving that enterprise value now. And eventually, over time, after you evaluate this periodically, sometimes monthly, maybe every quarter, but eventually you're going to find a need out here, either due to competition, or if it's long enough, it may be obsolescence, but it's going to force you to come back to the loop. And it's a continuous loop, and you're going to have a business need and go through the cycle again. So the executive governance life cycle, you can see here, executive leadership is there from the business case all the way out to achieving enterprise value. So that's a constant. They're there all the time, okay? The project, on the other hand, is a temporary endeavor. It's got a start time, okay, and an end time. And usually it ends somewhere around the approval of the gate review. And operational leadership is continuous, but after the gate review, they have increased capacity now due to the project. And you can see from this model here why operational management is not going to impact or have much influence on what the executive leadership does. And they don't have much influence on what the project does, but the project and operations together have this integrated operational readiness plan. So they cooperate during this period of time here, okay? But the project team has very little to say about what operations does after the project is completed. And they definitely don't have much say about what the executives can do. So projects do not create enterprise value. That's the bottom line, is they can contribute a small part of it, but you can't guarantee, the project manager cannot guarantee enterprise value. Its value is realized only when executive leadership integrates project readiness, operational readiness, and executive governance into a continuous decision-making system. Thank you for attending, and that concludes our presentation of executive project leadership management, architecture rather, and it also, we covered the integrated operational readiness, and that's the key part that PMI is focusing on, but there's still a gap. Even if you do that, there's still a gap in achieving enterprise value. And PMI is saying that the project manager should somehow contribute more to enterprise value, and it's limited in their ability to contribute to enterprise value. They can just enable enterprise value to occur, but they can't promise that it will occur, because that's up to operations and executives. So thank you for listening, and have a good day.